Prudence, thanks very much indeed. Fascinating conversation there. All right, let's continue with this theme. And joining me on Zoom now is Graham Wilkinson, who's a social investment specialist from Tshikululu Social Investments. A very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Peter. It's good to be with you this evening.
All right, so we've been talking about this whole SIBS environment from the investor through to the intermediaries and the suppliers, and ultimately government and institutions like that that pay for these projects. Where do you fit in that chain?
Okay, that's a good question. Thanks, Peter. And it is a long chain. There are a lot of intermediaries. It's one of the features of a social investment bond. I think that those who encounter this financial mechanism for the first time might be a bit surprised to see. As Tshikululu Social Investments, we have represented a number of our clients who are social investors. And,
right.
We've been participating in different SIBs. There have been, fortunately, more than just one or two in South Africa. It's still a very nascent sort of industry, or it's a very new sort of mechanism to our economy and to our context. But as Tshikululu, we've been very fortunate to be representing outcomes funders. And as Barry was just explaining to Prudence a little bit earlier, the outcomes fund is quite a crucial cog in the entire mechanism. But there have also been one or two of our clients that have been interested to participate in social investment bonds as investors. But those most of our clients have traditionally, if I can use the word traditionally, in a relatively new space, our clients at Tshikululu for the last 20 odd years have been more of those that are grant makers, philanthropists, and program funders. They're used to investing with the real objective of looking for social returns.
Right.
And they didn't mind about, in fact, they understood that once they let go of the money, it goes towards a social good, a public good, and that's been great for them. What's interesting with the social investment bond is it offers even those investors that are interested only in social returns, they can actually get some financial returns too. So it's a very interesting financial mechanism that allows different kinds of investors, social investors who've got different agendas and drivers for the reason why they get involved in social investing, to play a role and to play a part in this mechanism.
So do you think we're starting to get beyond corporate social investment and just philanthropy? Because now we're saying, look, I can make money and I can feel good about it.
Yes. And this is one of many different kinds of innovative finance mechanisms that are coming to market, and more people are exploring different ways of supporting initiatives. And Barry also mentioned social enterprise, which is a new idea. In South Africa, we don't have regulation that recognizes a social enterprise as you either a company, for-profit, or you not-for-profit. That little space in between isn't quite recognized by our legislation, but yet people are exploring that space more and more and finding ways in which you can achieve both, get financial returns and also see fantastic social returns. A bit of aid with trade. Right.
So are we saying that this is giving an opportunity for more funding to find its way into these great social programs, whereas before you were quite dependent on a number of grants and donors, but now there's a business case, and so there'll be greater funding, and the end result is citizens and people in general are going to benefit at a much greater scale?
Peter, I think this is the promise of the social investment bond as a mechanism, is that it can help pull in commercial capital that's looking at returns that on the commercial market that wants to match or improve what they could get in a money market or in any other kinds of corporate financing type investments in vehicles. The trick, I think, in South Africa is we haven't yet seen that promise fully realized yet. We could perhaps talk a bit about that. But the whole idea is to be able to mobilize all different kinds of finance and to crowd it in to support the achievement of defined social outcomes. I think that's...
What's it gonna take? Because I think when we start to go around the world, what we're starting to see more and more, consumers are saying, I will buy that product, but A, I want to know how it was made, I want to know where it comes from, I want to know that it's fair trade. I suppose, do we start to need to get that kind of consciousness in society that, you know, investment managers are saying, we can't just be investment managers, we've got to be socially responsible investment managers, and that way we start to see the flow of funds?
More and more, and you'll see that even the sort of hard-nosed, if I can use that term, investors and investment managers are beginning to adopt ESG into their investing strategies, to say, what is this investment doing in terms of the environment, in terms of social good, and in terms of good governance? And that's beginning to direct where money flows in the financial markets. Here we're talking in the trillions of rands. The social investment bonds we're still talking a few million. It's a very, very small part of the picture, but it is part of a bigger movement towards socially responsible and sustainable investing. Even people who are members of the pension fund are beginning to start asking questions of their trustees about where are you putting my pension savings? What is my pension doing towards helping the world with things like climate change, with even employment? It's not necessarily a big movement yet in South Africa. We have the pockets. Some would say the Sharia investing is particularly mission-oriented investing. But there are slowly more and more people beginning to ask questions, recognizing their power, even as maybe an entry-level employee who's just beginning to get your first paycheck. You are still making a contribution to a pension fund, and you have a say with where that money goes. And people are beginning to see that they have that power, and they can begin to direct their funding.
All right.
Their savings. Yeah.
So we're running out of time, but perhaps as a final word, there may be investors watching now and they're busy thinking about, this kind of thing. What's the best way to get in? I mean, they probably don't even know where to start. Do they find someone like you? What do they do?
Yes, with these innovative financing solutions, it is best to find people who have experience working with them. I think Peter also mentioned, Barry early on was just mentioning how it's a complicated field, and it's building up track record. So you definitely need to find a trusted advisor. But be curious and don't hold back from asking pointed questions. One of the things we're still trying to tease out about social investment bonds in South Africa is that balance between cost and scale. The one works against the other, and trying to get that right, because for some investors it isn't right. It just doesn't make sense for them to get involved. So find someone who's got some experience and get involved and ask lots of questions.
Great. Graham, thank you so much indeed, and good luck, and let's hope that this thing takes off fully. But thank you so much for giving us some insights this evening.
Super. Right, thanks so much, Peter. Thanks for the time.
Graham Wilkinson, who's a social investment specialist from Tshikululu Social Investments. So this is a vehicle worth exploring and thinking about. I mean, it really can change the world around us if we think about where we put our money. All right, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking to the